Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood at the observation deck of Earth's orbital command station, watching the steady flow of alien ships passing through the system. 50 years had passed since humanity first met the Galactic Federation, and still, the sight of those massive vessels made him feel small. The aliens had technology that humans could only dream of, ships that could cross the galaxy in days where human vessels took months. But there was something those alien ships could not do that human ships could. They could not break the rules. Kim turned away from the window and walked to his office. On his desk sat a thick document marked Variant Accords, Human Military Restrictions. He had read it so many times he could recite it from memory. The rules were simple and clear. Humans were classified as a primitive aggression species and were forbidden from building warships larger than Corvette class. No cruisers, no battleships, and certainly no dreadnaughts. The Federation had made these rules after the First Contact War. When alien scouts first arrived in human space, they had been peaceful. They wanted to talk, to learn, to trade. But some humans had been afraid. Governments had panicked. Military forces had attacked first and asked questions later. The war lasted only 3 months, but in that time humans had shown a level of violence and creativity in warfare that shocked the galaxy. Now, 50 years later, humans were still paying for those 3 months. Dr. Park Hyojin walked into Kim's office without knocking. As chief engineer of the Titan shipyards, she had that privilege. She was a small woman with quick hands and an even quicker mind. She had spent the last 20 years building corvettes for the human fleet, ships that were barely large enough to patrol a single star system. "We have a problem," she said, placing a data pad on Kim's desk. "The Keth hit another convoy." Kim picked up the pad and read the report. 3 human merchant ships had been destroyed in the outer rim. 47 crew members dead. The Federation peacekeepers had arrived 6 hours too late, as usual. "How many does that make this month?" Kim asked. 12 ships, over 200 dead. Park sat down in the chair across from his desk. "The Keth are getting bolder. They know. We can't fight back with anything bigger than a corvette." Kim set down the pad and rubbed his eyes. The Keth Dominion was a young species, aggressive and expanding rapidly through the galaxy. They had been testing human defenses for months now, probing to see how much they could get away with. The Federation did nothing because the Keth were not technically breaking any laws. They attacked ships in neutral space, claimed it was self-defense, and paid small fines when caught. "What about Captain Lee's patrol?" Kim asked. Park's expression darkened. "The Soul's pride is still in the Rigel system. Dong-Wu sent a message this morning. No sign of raiders, but he's found something else." She activated her pad and showed Kim a star map. A red dot blinked in the outer edge of human space. "New Busan went silent 3 days ago," Park said. "No communications, no shipping. Traffic, nothing. Lee's heading there now to investigate." Kim stared at the red dot. New Busan was a farming colony, home to almost 1 million people. It was far from any major shipping lanes with no military value. If the Keth had hit it, they were no longer just testing defenses. They were making a statement. "How long until Lee reaches New Busan?" Kim asked. 18 hours. Kim stood up and walked back to the observation window. Below them, Earth turned slowly in space, blue and white and peaceful. Most of the planet's population had no idea how dangerous the galaxy really was. They believed the Federation would protect them, that the Variant Accords were keeping everyone safe. But Kim knew better. He had fought in the First Contact War as a young officer. He had seen what happened when humans were pushed too far. The Federation had written their rules based on fear, not wisdom. They were so afraid of human aggression that they had forgotten something important. Sometimes aggression was the only thing that kept you alive. "Park," he said, still looking out the window. "How long would it take to build a real warship?" Park was quiet for a long moment. What kind of real warship? The kind that could make the Keth think twice about attacking our people. Admiral, you know the Accords. Anything larger than a corvette would bring the entire Federation down on us. They would declare us a rogue species. Cut off all trade, all technology sharing, everything. Kim turned around to face her. And if we do nothing, how many more convoys will the Keth destroy? How many more colonies will go silent? Park stood up and walked to the window. She was quiet for several minutes, watching the alien ships pass by. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. There might be a way, she said. The Accords specify ship classification by size and armament, but they don't say anything about where we build them or how we classify them ourselves. Kim raised an eyebrow. Go on. The Kuiper Belt. Lots of asteroids out there, far from prying eyes. We could hollow one out, use it as a construction facility, build something that technically isn't a ship until it's activated. And the armament restrictions? Park smiled for the first time since entering his office. The Accords ban energy, weapons above a certain power level. They don't say anything about kinetic weapons, railguns, mass drivers, good old-fashioned projectiles moving very fast. Kim felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. How long? He asked. 2 years, maybe 3. We would need to be very careful, very quiet, and we would need help from people who know how to keep secrets. Kim walked to his desk and picked up the datapad showing New Busan's location. The red dots seemed to pulse with urgency. Start making a list, he said. People we can trust, resources we can hide, whatever you need. Park nodded and headed for the door. She paused at the threshold and looked back at Kim. Admiral, if we do this, there's no going back. The Federation will never forgive us. Kim looked out the window. One more time at the alien ships passing through human space with their superior technology and their comfortable rules. Park, he said, I don't think forgiveness was ever an option. As she left, Kim activated his personal communicator and sent a coded message to Captain Lee aboard the Soul's Pride. Whatever they found at New Busan would determine how far humanity was willing to go to protect itself. The galaxy was about to learn that some rules were made to be broken. Captain Lee Dongwu stared at the ruins of New Busan from the bridge of his corvette. The Soul's Pride hung in space above what had once been a thriving colony world. Now it was nothing but burned cities and empty settlements. The orbital stations were twisted metal floating in the void. Any survivors? Lee asked his communications officer. Negative, sir. We've been scanning for 6 hours. No life signs, no distress beacons, nothing. Lee clenched his fists. New Busan had been home to almost 1 million people. Farmers, engineers, teachers, children. All gone. Sir, his tactical officer called out. I'm reading debris patterns that don't match standard raider attacks. This was systematic. Organized. Lee walked over to the tactical station and studied the readings. The officer was right. This was not random destruction. Someone had taken great care to destroy everything that could support human life while leaving. The planet's resources intact. Send everything to command, Lee ordered. Full sensor logs, debris analysis, everything. And tell them we're not dealing with raiders anymore. 3 days later, Dr. Park Hae-jin stood in a secret meeting room deep beneath the Titan shipyards. Around the table sat 5 people she trusted with her life. Admiral Kim had asked her to put together a team for Project Aegis, and these were the best humans she knew. Commander Choi Min-ho ran human intelligence. He was a quiet man who knew more about alien politics than most Federation diplomats. Engineer Yoon Soo-jin was Park's protege, brilliant with computer systems and artificial intelligence. The others were specialists in weapons, propulsion, and life support systems. What we're about to discuss never leaves this room, Park began. Anyone who wants out can leave now. No questions asked. Nobody moved. Park activated a holographic display showing the Kuiper Belt. A single asteroid, designated KX-7, appeared highlighted in blue. "This is where we're going to build humanity's first dreadnought," she said. The room was silent for several seconds. Then Choi spoke up. "The intelligence reports from New Busan confirm what we suspected. The Keth Dominion is not conducting random raids. They're preparing for a full-scale invasion of human space." He activated his own display showing Keth fleet movements over the past 6 months. Red dots marked known Keth positions, and the pattern was clear. They were surrounding human space like a closing fist. "How long do we have?" Park asked. "Best estimate? 2 years before they're ready to move on our core worlds. Maybe less." Yoon leaned forward. "What about the Federation? Surely they won't allow a full-scale invasion?" Choi's expression was grim. "The Federation's official position is that the Keth have legitimate territorial claims in the Outer Rim. They're calling it an internal human matter." "Internal human matter?" Park's voice rose. "They're talking about genocide." The Federation sees it differently. To them, humans are still the species that shot first during first contact. They think maybe the galaxy would be safer with fewer of us around. Park took a deep breath and forced herself to stay calm. "Getting angry would not help anyone." "Then we do this ourselves," she said. "Yoon, show them the design." The engineer activated a new holographic display. A massive warship appeared in the air above the table, rotating slowly so they could see every angle. It was unlike any Federation vessel any of them had ever seen. "We're calling it the Indomitable," Yoon said. "Length, 800 meters. The Federation classifies dreadnaughts as anything over 500 meters, but technically this is a mobile construction platform until we activate its weapon systems." "Clever," Choi said. "What about armament?" "No energy weapons above. The restricted threshold," Park explained. "Instead, we're using kinetic systems, railguns, mass drivers, and missile systems, all technically legal under the Accords." "Will it work?" one of the weapons specialists asked. Yoon smiled. "Federation ships are designed to fight other Federation ships. They have shields optimized for energy weapons and armor designed to stop plasma bolts. They're not prepared for solid projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed." Walked around the hologram, pointing out various systems. "We're also using modular construction. Every system can be replaced or upgraded without returning to dock. Distributed command structure means the ship can keep fighting even if the bridge is destroyed. And the AI systems are based on human neural networks, not Federation quantum matrices." "What does that mean in practical terms?" Choi asked. "It means the ship can learn and adapt during combat. Federation vessels follow programmed tactical patterns. The Indomitable will be able to improvise." One of the engineers raised his hand. "How do we build something this large without the Federation noticing?" Park grinned. "We don't build it all at once. We construct it in sections inside KX-7, then assemble everything at the last minute. To outside observers, it will look like a normal mining operation. And the crew? Volunteers only. People who understand that this mission might be a one-way trip." The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. They were not just talking about building a ship. They were talking about starting a war with the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. Choi broke the silence. "I have some contacts in the other human intelligence services, people who are tired of watching our colonies get picked off one by one. They might be willing to help." "Good," Park said. "We'll need all the help we can get. The Federation has spies everywhere. Over the next 2 hours, they worked out the details. Funding would come from black-budget military programs and private donors who had lost family members to Keth raids. Personnel would be recruited from special forces units and deep space mining operations. Equipment would be acquired through shell companies and fake research projects. It was dangerous, complicated, and probably impossible. It was also the only chance humanity had. As the meeting broke up, Yoon stayed behind to talk with Park privately. "Are we really going to do this?" the younger woman asked. Park looked at the hologram of the Indomitable, still rotating slowly in the air. It was a beautiful ship, elegant and deadly. It represented everything humans could accomplish when they refused to accept limitations. Su-Jin, Park said, 50 years ago, the galaxy told us we were too violent to be trusted with real weapons. They made us promise to be good, to stay small, to let them handle the big problems. She turned off the hologram, and the room became dark, except for the small lights along the walls. New Busan had no weapons bigger than police pistols. They followed every rule, every restriction, every guideline the Federation gave them. And now they're all dead. Park walked to the door, then looked back at her protégé. Sometimes, she said, the only way to save lives is to be willing to take them. As they left the meeting room and returned to their normal duties, both women knew they had just committed themselves to a path that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The question was whether there would be any humans left to benefit from that change. Engineer Yoon Soo-jin floated inside the hollowed-out asteroid KX-7, watching construction drones assemble the frame of humanity's first Dreadnaught. It had been 8 months since Project Aegis began, and the ship was finally starting to look like something that could fly and fight. The work was harder than anyone had expected. Federation technology came with built-in restrictions that prevented humans from building anything too large or too powerful. Every system had to be designed from scratch using basic principles and human innovation, but that was turning out to be an advantage. "Status report," Dr. Park Hye-jin said through the comm system. Yoon activated her suit's display and read off the numbers. Main hull assembly is 70% complete. Propulsion systems are installed and tested. Weapons systems are 40% complete. Problems? The usual. We can't use Federation shield generators because they won't work on a ship this size. So we're building our own. Yoon pushed off from a bulkhead and drifted toward the ship's engineering section. Inside, dozens of human engineers were working on systems that had never been built before. They were making it up as they went along, and somehow, it was working. The new shield design uses overlapping field generators instead of a single large one, Yoon explained as she moved through the ship. If one generator fails, the others compensate. It's actually more effective than standard Federation shields. Park's voice crackled with excitement. "Show me the fighter bay design." Yoon smiled and pushed off toward the forward section of the ship. The fighter bay was her favorite innovation. Federation carriers used large launch tubes that could deploy fighters one at a time. The Indomitable used something completely different. "We call it a swarm bay," Yoon said, activating the bay's lighting system. The massive space came alive with hundreds of small launch tubes arranged in a honeycomb pattern. Instead of launching 12 heavy fighters, we can deploy 300 light interceptors in under 60 seconds. Each interceptor was barely large enough for one pilot and an AI co-pilot. They carried no life support beyond emergency systems and no armor beyond basic hull plating. But they were fast, agile, and equipped with kinetic weapons that could punch through standard Federation shields. Pilot Kang Yuri has been testing the control systems, Yoon continued. The interceptors can operate independently or as a coordinated swarm. The AI systems allow them to share targeting data and tactical information in real time. Park was quiet for several seconds. How effective are they in combat simulation? Against standard Federation defensive patterns? A single swarm can overwhelm a cruiser-class vessel in under 10 minutes. While Yoon worked on the ship's systems, Lieutenant Colonel Jang Woo-bin was developing new tactics for the Marines who would serve aboard the Indomitable. The ship's design included features no Federation vessel had ever carried. "Rapid deployment pods," Jang explained to his training squad. They were gathered in a mock-up of the ship's marine deck, practicing boarding operations. "Instead of shuttles, we use armored pods that can punch through enemy hulls and deploy troops directly into hostile vessels." The pods were another example of human innovation born from restriction. Federation boarding protocols required formal surrender negotiations and careful docking procedures. Humans preferred a more direct approach. Each pod carries 8 Marines, plus support equipment, Jang continued. The pod's front section is designed to punch through standard Federation hull plating and create an airtight seal. From there, we use cutting tools to make entry holes and deploy smoke, flashbangs, and suppression fire. One of his Marines raised her hand. What about life support on the target vessel? We don't disable it. We take control of it. Every Federation ship has centralized life support systems that can be accessed from engineering sections. We take engineering first, then use their own systems against them. Jang activated a holographic display showing a typical Federation cruiser layout. Standard Federation ships have large open corridors designed for ceremonial purposes. Their crew quarters are spacious and comfortable. Their command centers are built for discussion and debate. He switched the display to show the Indomitable's interior layout. Our corridors are narrow and include defensive positions every 50 meters. Our crew quarters are small and functional. Our command center is a hardened bunker with multiple backup locations. In other words, one Marine said, their ships are designed for peace, and ours is designed for war. Exactly. Meanwhile, Captain Lee Dong-woo was dealing with a more immediate problem. The Keth had launched their first major offensive, hitting 3 human colonies in coordinated attacks. Lee's corvette was part of a small fleet trying to evacuate civilians before the next wave of attacks. Soul's Pride to Convoy 7, Lee said into his comm system. We have multiple Keth vessels approaching. Acceleration to maximum burn. The convoy of civilian ships was too slow and too lightly armed to fight. All they could do was run and hope the Federation peacekeepers would arrive before the Keth caught them. But the peacekeepers were nowhere to be seen. Captain, his tactical officer called out. Keth vessels are gaining. They'll be in weapons range in 20 minutes. Lee studied his tactical display. 12 civilian ships, carrying almost 10,000 refugees from the Harmony colony. His corvette was the only military vessel in the convoy, and it was no match for even one Keth raider, much less the 6 that were chasing them. Any word from Federation Command? Lee asked. Negative, sir. They're assessing the situation. Lee closed his eyes for a moment. In 20 minutes, 10,000 people would be dead, and the Federation would file a report expressing their deep concern about the tragic incident. All stop, Lee ordered. Sir, you heard me. All stop. Signal the convoy to continue to the jump point. His bridge crew stared at him. Captain, we can't fight 6 raiders. No, Lee said quietly. We can't. But we can buy the convoy time to escape. The Soul's Pride turned to face the approaching Keth vessels. It was a small ship with light armor and weapons designed for patrol duty, not combat. Against 6 raiders, it had no chance, but it was what they had. The battle lasted 7 minutes. The Soul's Pride managed to disable one Keth raider and damage, another before its shields failed and its hull was breached. Lee ordered the evacuation of his crew, then set the ship's reactor to overload. The explosion took out 2 more Keth vessels and gave the civilian convoy enough time to reach the jump point and escape to safety. Lee and most of his crew were rescued by a Federation patrol ship that arrived 3 hours later. When asked why he had sacrificed his ship for a handful of civilians, Lee's answer was simple. Because they were our people. The story of the Soul's Pride spread throughout human space within days. It became a symbol of what humans were willing to do to protect each other, and proof that the Federation's protection was not something they could rely on. Back at KX-7, work on the Indomitable accelerated. News of the Keth offensive had reached the construction crews, and everyone understood that time was running out. Park stood in the ship's command center, watching technicians install the final control systems. The bridge was nothing like the spacious, ceremonial centers found on Federation vessels. It was a compact, efficient workspace designed for combat operations. How much longer? Admiral Kim's voice came through the secure comm channel. 6 weeks for basic systems, Park replied. 3 months for full combat readiness. We may not have 3 months. Intelligence reports suggest the Keth are preparing for a major push toward Earth itself. Park looked around the bridge of humanity's First, real warship. It was not finished, not fully tested, not ready for combat, but it was their only hope. Then we'll have to make it ready, she said. As if responding to her words, the ship's AI system came online for the first time. Lights flickered on throughout the vessel, and the gentle hum of functioning life support systems filled the air. The Indomitable was alive. The Federation discovery came at the worst possible time. Ambassador Oh Sung-ho stood in the Galactic Council chambers, facing the assembled representatives of 43 alien species. Behind him, a holographic display showed detailed images of the Indomitable under construction inside asteroid KX-7. "The evidence is clear," declared Vex Prime Minister Zothkar, his forearms gesturing dramatically at the display. "The humans have violated the Varian Accords by constructing a vessel clearly exceeding Corvette-class specifications." Oh kept his expression calm, though inside he was calculating how much time they had left. "Honored representatives, the vessel you see is a mobile mining platform designed for deep space resource extraction. All construction has been within legal parameters. A mining platform with military-grade armor and weapon systems." The Orth Collective's mechanical voice buzzed, with electronic laughter. "Do you take this council for fools?" Oh had been humanity's chief diplomat for 15 years. He had negotiated trade agreements, settled territorial disputes, and kept the peace through dozens of minor crises. But this was different. This time, there was no room for compromise. "The platform's defensive systems are necessary for operation in contested space," he said carefully. "Pirates and raiders require deterrent measures." "Deterrent measures that include multiple railgun batteries and fighter deployment systems?" Zothkar's voice rose. "This is clearly a Dreadnaught class warship, and its existence violates every restriction placed on human military development." In the Kuiper Belt, Admiral Kim watched the council proceedings through an encrypted feed. Beside him, General Nam Ja-hyun studied tactical displays showing Keth fleet movements. The enemy was less than 2 weeks away from Earth, and the Federation was more concerned with human rule-breaking than alien invasion. "Orders, sir?" Nam asked quietly. Kim looked at the Indomitable through the observation window. The massive ship floated in space beside the hollowed asteroid, its hull gleaming under the harsh light of distant Sol. It was beautiful and terrible, humanity's answer to a galaxy that had tried to keep them weak. "Begin crew loading," Kim said. "All volunteers, all departments. We launch in 72 hours. "Sir, the ship isn't fully tested. Half the systems are still being calibrated. General, in 2 weeks there may not be an Earth to return to. We work with what we have." "Dr. Park?" Hygen was already aboard the Indomitable, running final checks on the ship's core systems. The engineering deck buzzed with activity as hundreds of crew members took their positions for the first time. Most had never served on anything larger than a corvette. None had ever seen technology like this. "Fusion reactors are online and stable," reported engineer Yoon Soo-jin from the Power Distribution Center. "All systems are receiving adequate power." "AI core status?" Park asked. "Integration at 93%. The neural networks are adapting to ship systems faster than projected. I think she's eager to fly." Park smiled. The ship's AI was based on human neural patterns rather than Federation quantum matrices. It thought more like a human than a machine, which meant it could be unpredictable, creative, and adaptive in ways that alien technology could not match. "Navigation systems online," called another technician. "Gravitational drive is responding normally." The gravitational drive was another human innovation. Instead of using the Federation's hyperspace gates, which could be monitored and controlled, the Indomitable could bend space around itself and travel independently to any point in the galaxy. Back in the council chambers, Ambassador Oh was fighting a losing battle. The evidence against humanity was overwhelming, and the Federation's decision was predictable. By unanimous vote, Zothkar announced, "This council declares humanity in violation of the Varian Accords. You have 48 hours to surrender." the illegal vessel and submit to Federation oversight of all human military assets. And if we refuse? O asked. Then humanity will be declared a rogue species. All trade agreements will be terminated, all technology sharing will cease, and military action will be authorized to enforce compliance. O stood quietly for a moment. Through his earpiece, he could hear Kim's voice giving him final instructions. Honored representatives, O said, I must inform you that humanity formally rejects the authority of this council and withdraws from the Galactic Federation. The chamber erupted in shocked voices from 43 different species. O turned and walked out, knowing he would never return. Captain Lee Dong-woo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, studying the tactical displays that surrounded his command chair. The ship's bridge was unlike anything he had ever seen. Instead of the open, ceremonial spaces found on Federation vessels, this was a compact combat center with every surface displaying critical information. All stations report ready, announced. His executive officer, weapon systems charged and online, reported the tactical officer. Fighter squadrons ready for launch, called the flight control officer. Lee looked around at his crew. They were volunteers from across human space, men and women who had lost friends and family to Keth raids. They knew this might be a suicide mission, but they had come anyway. Pilot Kang Yu-ri, status of interceptor squadrons? The young pilot's voice came through the comm from the fighter control center. All 300 birds are ready to fly, Captain. My pilots are eager to show the galaxy what human engineering can do. Lee nodded and activated the ship's communication system. Throughout the vessel, his voice reached every crew member. This is Captain Lee. In a few hours, we will engage the Keth fleet that is approaching Earth. This ship was built in secret because the galaxy told us we were too dangerous to be trusted with real weapons. Today, we prove them right. He paused, looking at the tactical display that showed the approaching enemy fleet. 50 Keth warships, including several dreadnaughts of their own. Against humanity's single untested vessel, the Federation has abandoned us. The Keth think we are weak. They are both about to learn that humans do not give up, we do not surrender, and we do not let anyone harm our people without consequences. Throughout the ship, crew members checked their equipment one final time. In the fighter bays, 300 pilots climbed into interceptors that had never been tested in real combat. In the Marine sections, Lieutenant Colonel Zhang's boarding. Teams prepared for operations that no human had ever attempted. All sections report ready for combat operations, the executive officer announced. Lee looked at the main display, which now showed the Keth fleet entering the outer edge of the Sol system. They had ignored all Federation warnings and demands to withdraw. They were coming for Earth, and they believed nothing could stop them. Take us out of the asteroid field, Lee ordered. Set course for the enemy fleet. The Indomitable's engines came to life with a deep thrumming that could be felt throughout the ship. As the massive vessel cleared the asteroid field and began accelerating toward combat, its AI spoke for the first time. Captain, the AI said in a voice that sounded almost human, I have completed analysis of enemy tactical patterns. I am ready to engage. Lee smiled. The galaxy had spent 50 years trying to keep humanity small and weak. They had made rules and restrictions designed to prevent humans from building ships like this. But they had forgotten something important about the species they were trying to control. Humans were very good at breaking rules. All hands, battle stations, Lee announced. Let's show them what happens when you threaten our world. The Indomitable accelerated toward the enemy fleet, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of an entire species that refused to go quietly into extinction. Behind it, the Federation watched in horror as their carefully constructed order began to collapse. The real war was about to begin. The first battle lasted 6 hours and changed everything. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display as 300 human interceptors swarmed through the Keth fleet like angry wasps. The enemy had expected to face a single human dreadnaught using standard Federation tactics. Instead, they found themselves trying to fight a cloud of small, fast targets that appeared and disappeared unpredictably. "Enemy flagship is taking heavy damage," reported the tactical officer. "Their shields are designed to stop large energy. Weapons, not multiple kinetic impacts." Lee nodded. The Keth Dreadnought was 3 times larger than the Indomitable, but size meant nothing when you could not hit your target. The human interceptors moved in coordinated swarms, each pilot linked to the ship's AI system and sharing targeting data in real time. "Pilot Kang? Status of Squadron 7? Lee asked. Yuri's voice crackled through the comm from her interceptor's cockpit. "We've punched through their defensive screen, Captain, moving to attack their engine systems." On the display, Lee watched as 50 interceptors dove toward the Keth flagship's rear section. The enemy's point defense systems tried to track them, but the small fighters were too fast and too numerous. One by one, the interceptors fired their kinetic weapons directly into the massive ship's engine core. The explosion lit up the solar system. "Enemy flagship destroyed," announced the tactical officer. "Remaining Keth vessels are attempting to withdraw." But withdrawal was not an option. The Indomitable's gravitational drive allowed it to pursue fleeing ships faster than they could escape. Within 4 hours, the entire Keth invasion fleet was either destroyed or disabled. The victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, a restricted species had defeated a major military power using technology the Federation had tried to prevent them from developing. The reaction was immediate and violent. Admiral Kim sat in his office aboard Earth's command station, reading reports from across human space. The Federation had responded to humanity's victory by declaring them a galactic threat and authorizing military action against all human settlements. But they were not the only ones moving. The Battle of Sol had inspired other restricted species to question their own limitations. The young Vrath Republic had begun secretly building their own Dreadnaughts. The Torvan Commonwealth was developing new weapon systems. Even some Federation member species were asking why they needed permission to defend themselves. "The galaxy is coming apart," General Nam reported. "Half the Federation species are demanding military restrictions be lifted. The other half want us exterminated before we spread our dangerous ideas to other worlds." Kim looked at the latest intelligence reports. More Keth fleets were being assembled in their home territory, but now they were being joined by Vex warships and Orth battle platforms. The Federation's oldest and most powerful members had decided that humanity represented an existential threat to galactic order. "How many ships do we have ready?" Kim asked. "The Defiant completed trials last week. Captain Shin Bo-Ra is taking her on-patrol runs in the outer system. Construction on 8 more Dreadnaughts is proceeding ahead of schedule." Kim stood up and walked to his window. Below, Earth continued its ancient rotation, unaware that its people had just started the largest war in galactic history. "And the Indomitable?" "Captain Lee is requesting permission to take her into Keth space. He wants to hit their shipyards before they can launch another invasion." Kim considered this. Attacking enemy home territory would be a major escalation, but the alternative was waiting for the Keth and their Federation allies to organize a force large enough to overwhelm human defenses. "Approved," Kim said. "But tell Lee he's not going alone." Captain Shin Bo-Ra stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching her crew prepare for their first combat mission. Her ship was similar to the Indomitable, but incorporated lessons learned from the first battle. The interceptor bays were larger, the weapons more powerful, and the armor heavier. "Signal from the Indomitable," her communications officer reported. "Captain Lee is ready to begin the operation." Bora activated the tactical display showing both human dreadnoughts and their escort of 12 corvettes. It was the largest human fleet ever assembled, and they were about to attack the home world of a species that had never known defeat. All ships, this is Captain Shin. Execute Operation Hammer. The human fleet vanished from normal space as their gravitational drives activated. They would reappear deep in Keth territory, at the industrial world of Keth Prime, where the enemy built their warships. The journey took 18 hours. When the human ships emerged from their space-bending transit, they found themselves facing the largest orbital shipyard complex in the galaxy. Hundreds of Keth vessels were under construction, including several super dreadnaughts that dwarfed even the largest Federation ships. "My God," whispered Lee's tactical officer. "If they had finished building those, they won't get the chance," Lee replied. "All squadrons, launch fighters, target the construction platforms first." 600 human interceptors poured from the two dreadnaughts, moving in coordinated swarms toward the shipyards. The Keth had defenders in place, but they were positioned to fight large ships, not clouds of small attackers. The battle for Keth Prime lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Keth's shipbuilding capacity had been reduced to scrap metal floating in space. More importantly, the human fleet had captured detailed intelligence about Federation war plans. Admiral Yu Kyung-min reviewed the captured data from her flagship, the newly completed dreadnought Relentless. The Federation was assembling the largest military force in galactic history. Over 300 dreadnaughts from a dozen different species, supported by thousands of cruisers and destroyers. "They're calling it the Pacification Fleet," she told Kim during their encrypted communication. "Their mission is to occupy Earth and dismantle all human military assets." "How long until they're ready to move?" Kim asked. 6 months, maybe 8. "But Admiral, we're not going to be facing just the Federation. The intelligence reports show that several non-member species are joining the operation. They're terrified that our technology will spread to other restricted species." Kim was quiet for several minutes. Through his office window he could see the construction yards where 12 more human dreadnaughts were nearing completion. Each ship was unique, incorporating new innovations and improvements based on combat experience. But even with a fleet of 25 dreadnaughts, humanity would be outnumbered more than 10 to 1. "There's something else," Yu continued. "We're getting messages from restricted species across the galaxy. They want copies of our ship designs, our tactical manuals, everything. Some are offering to join us in direct military action." Kim felt a spark of hope. Humanity had never intended to start a galactic war. They had just wanted to defend themselves against raiders and pirates. But if other species were willing to stand up against the Federation's restrictions, "Set up secure communications with any species willing to talk," he ordered. "And Admiral, accelerate all ship construction. If we're going to fight half the galaxy, we're going to need every advantage we can get." Across human space, shipyards worked around the clock to build more dreadnaughts. Each vessel represented months of work by thousands of people who understood that failure meant extinction. The ships were not just weapons, they were symbols of humanity's refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. But the Federation was not standing still either. In shipyards across dozens of star systems, alien engineers were building their own innovations. New weapons designed specifically to counter human tactics, improved shields that could stop kinetic projectiles, fighter craft designed to match human interceptors. The galaxy was dividing into 2 camps, those who accepted the old order and those who demanded the right to defend themselves. The war that was coming would determine not just humanity's survival, but the future of every species in the galaxy. Captain Lee stood in the Indomitable's observation lounge, watching Earth turn slowly in space. Soon, he would take his ship and crew far from home to fight battles in distant star systems. Some of them would not return, but they would fight anyway, because that was what humans did when their survival was threatened. They adapted, they innovated, and they refused to surrender. The galaxy was about to learn that some species could not be kept down, no matter how many rules you made. The final battle began at the edge of Keth space, where the largest fleet in galactic history waited for humanity's response. Fleet Admiral Bayek In-Su stood on the bridge of the Dreadnaught Sovereign, watching his tactical displays show the massive Federation force arrayed against them. 347 Federation Dreadnaughts, over 2,000 cruisers and destroyers, fighters and bombers numbering in the tens of thousands. It was a force large enough to conquer entire sectors of space, and it was all focused on destroying humanity. Final count of our forces. Bayek asked his operations officer. 31 Dreadnaughts, Admiral. 47 corvettes, 850 interceptor squadrons. We also have 12 allied ships from the Vrath Republic and 6 from the Torvan Commonwealth. Bayek nodded. The numbers were not encouraging, but raw firepower had never been humanity's greatest strength. Their advantage lay in tactics, innovation, and pure stubborn refusal to give up. Signal from President Lim, the communications officer announced. President Lim Yun-jung's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Bayek could see the underground command center from which Earth's government was now operating. The Federation's advance forces had been bombing human worlds for weeks, trying to force surrender before the main battle. Admiral, the President said, you know what this battle means. If we lose today, there will be no tomorrow for our species. Understood, Madam President. We won't let you down. I know you won't. Good hunting, Admiral. The screen went dark, leaving Bayek alone with his thoughts and the weight of an entire species' survival resting on his shoulders. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now serving as Bayek's flagship for the operation. Around him, the ship hummed with activity as crew members prepared for what would likely be the most important battle in human history. All ships report ready for combat, announced Commander Park, the ship's executive officer and daughter of the woman who had designed these vessels. Fighter squadrons ready for launch, reported pilot Kang Yuri, now promoted to wing commander after 3 years of combat experience. Lee looked at the tactical display showing both fleets. The Federation force was arranged in the traditional formation used for thousands of years. Dreadnaughts in the center, cruisers forming a protective screen, fighters deployed in standard patrol patterns. The human fleet was arranged very differently. Execute formation chaos, Lee ordered. The human dreadnaughts spread out across millions of cubic kilometers of space, each ship operating independently but linked through AI communication networks. There was no central formation, no predictable pattern, no single point of failure. Federation fleet is beginning their advance, reported the tactical officer. They're maintaining standard battle formation. Lee smiled. After 3 years of war, the Federation still expected humans to fight like civilized species. They were about to learn that civilization was a luxury humanity could not afford. All ships, launch all fighters, execute Swarm Protocol Alpha. 25,000 human interceptors poured from the Dreadnaughts, moving in seemingly random patterns that only made sense to the AI systems coordinating their actions. To Federation observers, It looked like chaos. To the human pilots, it was a carefully orchestrated dance of destruction. The Federation's first mistake was trying to maintain their formation while under attack by fighter swarms. Their second mistake was assuming human dreadnaughts would fight like Federation ships, exchanging fire at long range while maneuvering for positional advantage. Instead, the Indomitable and her sister ships used their gravitational drives to appear and disappear unpredictably throughout the battle space. One moment they were engaging Federation ships at the edge of the formation, the next they were inside the enemy's defensive perimeter, firing kinetic rounds at point-blank range. Enemy. Formation is breaking up, reported Captain Shin from the Defiant. Their command structure can't adapt to our mobility. Maintain pressure, Beck ordered. Don't give them time to reorganize. But the Federation had been preparing for this battle for months. As their first formation collapsed, reserve forces moved in with new tactics designed specifically to counter human advantages. "Admiral," the tactical officer called out, "enemy fighters are using new shielding technology. Our kinetic weapons are less effective." Beck studied the tactical display. The Federation had learned from their defeats, developing shields that could deflect solid projectiles and fighters that could match human interceptors for speed and maneuverability. "Time to show them why humans don't rely on single solutions," Beck said. "Signal all ships. Execute adaptation protocol." Throughout the human fleet, crews began implementing modifications they had prepared for exactly this situation. Kinetic weapons were replaced with new plasma systems. Fighter tactics shifted from swarm attacks to precision strikes. Even the ship's AI systems began updating their programming based on real-time battle analysis. The Federation had spent months preparing for the war they expected to fight. Humans adapted to the war they found themselves in. The battle raged for 18 hours. Ships on both sides were destroyed, but gradually, the human advantages began to tell. Their modular construction allowed damaged vessels to continue fighting with reduced capability. Their distributed command structure meant that losing individual ships did not disrupt their overall coordination. Most importantly, human crews simply refused to give up. When the Valiant lost its main engines, Captain Kim used maneuvering thrusters to ram an enemy dreadnought. When the Defiant's weapons failed, Captain Shin ordered her interceptors to physically block enemy fire while repairs were made. "Federation. Flagship is signaling for parley," the communications officer announced. Beck looked at his tactical display. The Federation force had been reduced by half, and many of their remaining ships were heavily damaged. But the human fleet had paid a heavy price as well. 8 dreadnaughts destroyed, dozens of corvettes lost, and thousands of pilots who would never return home. "Put them through," Beck ordered. Vex Prime Minister Zothkar appeared on the main screen, his forearms bound in what Beck recognized as a gesture of formal surrender among his species. "Human Admiral," Zothkar said, "we acknowledge that continued combat serves no purpose. We are prepared to discuss terms." Beck was quiet for several minutes. This was the moment that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. "The terms are simple," he said finally. "The Varian Accords are dissolved. All restrictions on human military development are permanently lifted. Any species that attacks human settlements will face the full response of the human fleet. And, in return, we will not attack Federation worlds that leave us alone. We will share our technology with any species that asks for it, regardless of their classification. And we will defend any species that chooses to defend itself against Federation restrictions." Zothkar considered this. Around him, representatives, of other Federation species could be seen arguing in hushed tones. "You are asking us to abandon the principles that have kept the galaxy peaceful for thousands of years," he said. "We're asking you to abandon the principles that kept you in power while other species lived in fear," Beck replied. "Peace built on oppression isn't peace at all." The negotiations lasted 3 days. In the end, the Federation agreed to dissolve the Varian Accords and establish a new galactic charter based on self-determination rather than species classification. It was not a perfect agreement, but it was a beginning. 6 months later, Admiral Kim stood in his office aboard the New Earth Defense Command Station, watching construction crews assemble humanity's first Titan-class warship. The vessel was 5 times larger than a Dreadnought, equipped with weapons that could crack planets and shields that could deflect stellar radiation. "Was it worth it?" Dr. Park asked. She was older now, her hair gray from years of stress and overwork, but her eyes still held the spark of innovation that had built humanity's first real warship. Kim considered the question. Millions had died in the war. Entire worlds had been destroyed. The galaxy would never be the same. But human colonies were expanding into territories that had been forbidden to them for 50 years. Species that had been classified as primitive were building their own fleets and defending their own territories. The Federation's grip on galactic civilization had been broken, possibly forever. "Ask me again in 100 years, Kim said, "when we see what kind of galaxy our children inherit." Park nodded and returned to her work. Outside the observation window, human ships moved through space with the confidence of a species that had earned its place among the stars. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about humanity. They were very good at breaking rules. More importantly, they were even better at writing new ones. In the years that followed, historians would mark the Battle of Keth Prime as the moment when the old galactic order died and something new was born. Some called it the beginning of an age of chaos and warfare. Others called it the first day of true galactic freedom. Humanity called it Tuesday and got back to work building ships.